Ladies and gentlemen, failure is a universal experience, a humbling force that spares no one. But not all failure is created equal. Today I want to talk about a specific kind of failure, one that you must strive to avoid at all costs. Let's call it psychopathic failure. It's the kind of failure that stems from the absence of empathy, responsibility, and moral grounding. Now, what do I mean by this? A psychopath isn't just someone you see in crime thrillers or courtroom dramas. It's a person who moves through life detached from the consequences of their actions on others. They fail, not because they tried and fell short, but because they lacked the decency to care. Here's the thing about responsibility. It's not just a burden, it's a compass. It points you toward meaning, toward purpose. When you dodge responsibility, you set yourself adrift in chaos. And chaos. That's where the seeds of psychopathic failure are sown. Empathy is another crucial pillar. When you fail to recognize the humanity in others, you strip your actions of their ethical foundation. Failure becomes inevitable, not because you were bold, but because you were blind to the damage you caused. Self-awareness acts as your internal mirror. Psychopaths avoid this mirror like it's a poison. They deflect, they rationalize, they evade. But if you refuse to confront your flaws, you'll fail the same way they do in denial and stagnation. On the other hand, failure isn't always a bad thing. There's a kind of failure that builds resilience, sharpens your character, and teaches you humility. This is the failure of those who dare to try, fall, and rise again. It's failure with a heartbeat, not failure born from a hollow existence. Let's talk about trust. Without it, no society, no relationship, and no individual can thrive. A psychopath shatters trust, treating people as tools to be manipulated. This is failure of the highest order, the failure to uphold integrity. Emotional detachment might seem like a shield, but it's a double-edged sword. It keeps pain at bay, but it also numbs joy, connection, and growth. If you fail because you're emotionally disconnected, you fail in isolation, and isolation, and isolation, and isolation is a slow, relentless poison. So how do we avoid failing like a psychopath? By embracing resilience, by owning our mistakes, learning from them, and remaining steadfast in our commitment to betterment. Psychopathic failure is a failure of the soul. It's a void where growth and connection should be. Don't fail like a psychopath. Fail like a human being with courage, empathy, and a relentless drive to get back up. Because in the end, it's not the failures that define us. It's what we build from their ashes. Psychopathy is a complex and often misunderstood concept, one that has captivated scientists, psychologists, and storytellers alike. It conjures images of cold, calculating individuals who lack remorse, empathy, and any sense of moral responsibility. But psychopathy isn't just confined to the realm of Hollywood villains or extreme cases of criminal behavior. In its essence, it represents a disconnection from humanity, a way of being that rejects accountability, dismisses the value of others, and prioritizes self-interest above all else. To truly understand how not to fail like a psychopath, we need to dissect what this mindset looks like and why it leads to catastrophic outcomes. At its core, psychopathy is defined by a profound absence of empathy. This absence manifests in a chilling inability to connect with or care about others' emotions, struggles, or perspectives. When someone operates with this mindset, they see people as tools, stepping stones, or obstacles, never as individuals with their own intrinsic value. This detachment may initially seem like an advantage, particularly in competitive environments where ambition often overshadows compassion. But in reality, this emotional void is a fatal flaw. It undermines trust, fractures relationships, and creates a pattern of failure that is both self-inflicted and inevitable. One of the hallmarks of psychopathy is the refusal to take responsibility for one's actions. Instead of acknowledging mistakes or learning from failure, a psychopathic mindset seeks to evade blame, rationalize bad behavior, or project faults onto others. This lack of accountability is not just a personal failing, it's a ticking time bomb. Without the ability to own up to errors, there is no room for growth, no chance to repair what has been broken, and no path forward. A life lived without responsibility is a life destined for chaos, and this chaos often results in a failure that is as predictable as it is destructive. What makes psychopathic failure particularly insidious is its short-sightedness. A person operating this way may achieve temporary gains, perhaps through manipulation, deception, or ruthless ambition, but these victories are hollow. They come at the expense of trust, integrity, and sustainability. True success, whether in personal relationships, professional endeavors, or broader societal contributions, requires more than strategy and cunning. It demands a foundation built on mutual respect, genuine effort, and a commitment to something greater than oneself. Psychopathy erodes that foundation, ensuring that any semblance of success is fleeting at best. Psychopathy's allure, for some, lies in its promise of freedom from the emotional burdens that come with caring deeply, but this freedom is a trap. To exist without empathy or accountability is to cut oneself off from the richness of life, from connection, growth, and purpose. It is a path, not just to failure, but to an existence that is ultimately devoid of meaning. When you fail in this way, it's not because the world was too harsh or the odds too steep. It's because you turned your back on the very qualities that make us human. Responsibility is a cornerstone of human existence, a guiding principle that shapes not only our individual lives, but also the very fabric of society. Without responsibility, life becomes unmoored, a chaotic drift through uncertainty, devoid of direction and meaning. It is not simply a burden to be carried. Responsibility is a privilege, an opportunity to define who we are and what we stand for. When we fail to embrace it, we risk descending into a state of disorder where failure becomes inevitable. And this failure is not the noble kind that fosters growth, but the destructive kind that mirrors the traits of a psychopath. At its essence, responsibility requires us to acknowledge the weight of our actions and their consequences. It calls on us to stand up and be counted, to take ownership of the roles we play in the outcomes we experience. This is not an easy task, nor is it meant to be. Responsibility demands courage, the courage to face reality, even when it is uncomfortable or painful. It requires honesty both with ourselves and with others, and a willingness to admit when we are wrong. The absence of these qualities creates a vacuum where failure thrives, not as a lesson but as a repeated pattern of avoidance and denial. When responsibility is neglected, chaos takes its place. Think about what happens in a family, a workplace, or even a community when people refuse to take responsibility for their actions. Relationships deteriorate, trust erodes, and progress grinds to a halt. Without responsibility, there is no accountability, and without accountability, there is no structure to hold things together. It is like trying to build a house on quicksand. No matter how beautiful or ambitious the design, it will inevitably collapse. This is the kind of failure that stems from irresponsibility, a failure that is entirely preventable but all too common. Responsibility also acts as a bridge between intention and action. It transforms abstract ideas and aspirations into concrete steps and measurable outcomes. Without it, even the best intentions remain just that, intentions. They never materialize into anything meaningful or impactful. Irresponsibility, then, is not just a passive state of inaction, it is an active rejection of potential. It is a choice, whether conscious or not, to prioritize comfort and avoidance over growth and contribution. This choice may feel liberating in the short term, but it is a form of self-sabotage that guarantees long-term failure. Empathy is one of the most profound and defining qualities of humanity. It is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, to step outside of yourself and into the experience of someone else. Empathy binds us together, creating connections that go beyond words or actions. When empathy is absent, however, the consequences can be devastating. A life lived without empathy is not only isolating but also destructive, both to oneself and to others. And failure rooted in a lack of empathy is not the kind that teaches lessons or builds character. It is the kind that tears down relationships, undermines trust, and sows the seeds of chaos. At the heart of empathy is the recognition that other people are just as real as we are. They have their own thoughts, feelings, struggles, and dreams, all of which matter as much as our own. When this understanding is absent, as it often is in psychopathic tendencies, people become objects rather than individuals. They are seen as tools to be used, obstacles to be overcome, or simply irrelevant. This mindset leads to actions and decisions that disregard the well-being of others, causing harm that is often irreparable. Such behavior might bring short-term gains, but it is fundamentally unsustainable. When you treat others as if they don't matter, you inevitably create a world in which you don't matter to others either. Empathy is also essential for effective communication and collaboration. Whether in personal relationships, professional settings, or larger societal contexts, the ability to understand and consider other perspectives is what allows us to work together toward common goals. Without empathy, misunderstandings proliferate, conflicts escalate, and cooperation breaks down. This creates an environment where failure becomes almost inevitable, not because the challenges were insurmountable, but because the very foundation for addressing them was missing. In this sense, a lack of empathy doesn't just lead to failure, it actively prevents success. Empathy, however, is not just about avoiding harm, it is also a source of strength and resilience. When we empathize with others, we gain insights that broaden our perspectives and deepen our understanding. We learn to see the world through different lenses, which can help us navigate challenges and find creative solutions. In this way, empathy is not a weakness or a distraction. As some might believe, it is a powerful tool for success. Its absence, on the other hand, ensures a kind of failure that is as isolating as it is destructive, leaving behind a trail of broken connections and missed opportunities. Self-awareness is one of the most vital tools for personal growth and meaningful success. It is the capacity to see yourself clearly, to understand your motivations, behaviors, and emotions, and to recognize how these elements interact with the world around you. Without self-awareness, we risk becoming blind to our own shortcomings and incapable of learning from our mistakes. Failure born of a lack of self-awareness is particularly dangerous because it is cyclical. Without the ability to identify where we've gone wrong, we are doomed to repeat the same errors over and over again, trapped in a pattern of stagnation and frustration. This type of failure is not just a loss of opportunity, it is a loss of opportunity, it is a loss of potential. The absence of self-awareness is a defining feature of psychopathy, where denial and deflection replace reflection and growth. A person who lacks self-awareness often refuses to look in the mirror, avoiding the discomfort of confronting their flaws or acknowledging their role in their own misfortunes. This avoidance leads to a mindset where problems are always externalized, blamed on circumstances, other people, or bad luck. While this might provide temporary emotional relief, it ultimately ensures that nothing changes. Problems persist because the root causes, often within the individual, are never addressed. This is why self-awareness is not optional for those seeking to succeed. It is a prerequisite for meaningful progress. Self-awareness is also the key to authentic accountability. To take responsibility for your actions, you first need to understand them. Why did you make that decision? What were the underlying motives, fears, or desires driving your behavior? How did your choices impact others, and what could you have done differently? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are essential if you want to learn from failure rather than be defined by it. Without self-awareness, you lack the ability to answer these questions honestly, and without honesty, there can be no growth. This is where the lack of self-awareness mirrors the failure of a psychopath and inability to reflect, to admit fault, or to see the bigger picture. Another danger of living without self-awareness is the disconnect it creates between your intentions and your outcomes. Many people genuinely believe they are doing the right thing, only to discover later that their actions had unintended negative consequences. This gap between intent and impact is often bridged by self-awareness. When you are attuned to your own thoughts and behaviors, you can catch these disconnects early, adjusting course before they lead to failure. Without this capacity, you are left lurching from one problem to the next, blindsided by outcomes you could have anticipated if only you had looked inward. The absence of self-awareness also erodes trust and credibility in relationships. People who lack self-awareness are often seen as unpredictable, defensive, or disingenuous, as they fail to own their part in conflicts or missteps. This inability to connect honestly with others creates a barrier that isolates them over time. In the end, a lack of self-awareness doesn't just lead to failure, it creates a life of disconnection, frustration, and missed opportunities. Failure, in its truest form, is not something to be feared or avoided, it is something to be embraced and learned from. It is a natural consequence of effort, risk, and ambition, and it holds the potential to be one of life's greatest teachers. But this kind of failure with intention, humility, and accountability is profoundly different from the destructive, stagnant failure of someone who refuses to learn. The distinction lies in how we approach failure as an opportunity for growth or as a threat to be denied and evaded. Failing in the right way can refine your character and strengthen your resolve, while failing in the wrong way can hollow you out, leaving behind only regret and stagnation. Failure is inevitable when you strive to achieve something meaningful. No great accomplishment comes without setbacks. The person who fails well understands this and views failure as a stepping stone, rather than an endpoint. They do not see failure as a reflection of their worth, but as feedback from the world, a signal pointing them toward what needs to be adjusted, refined, or improved. This mindset requires humility, the ability to admit that you don't have all the answers and that mistakes are part of the process. It also requires resilience, the willingness to keep going even when the path becomes difficult or uncertain. The value of failure lies in the lessons it provides. Every misstep offers a chance to learn more about yourself, your capabilities, and the world around you. When you fail, you are presented with a mirror that reflects not only your strengths but also your weaknesses. It shows you where you need to grow, what you need to change, and what you are capable of overcoming. But this reflection is only valuable if you are willing to look at it honestly. Those who refuse to learn from failure, who deflect blame or deny their mistakes, rob themselves of the opportunity to evolve. This is why the way you fail matters as much as whether you fail. The alternative to failing well is failing like a psychopath, coldly, disconnected, and without introspection. When someone fails in this way, they refuse to take responsibility, shifting the blame onto others or external circumstances. They do not use failure as a chance to grow because they do not see themselves as part of the problem. This kind of failure is not a teacher, it is a prison, trapping the individual in a cycle of repeated mistakes and missed opportunities. It is the failure of those who lack the courage to confront their own shortcomings and who prioritize their ego over their potential. True failure is not about the act of falling short, it is about what you do next. Do you retreat into denial and self-pity, or do you stand up, take stock, and try again? Those who embrace failure as a necessary part of progress do not just recover, they come back stronger, wiser, and more capable. Failure, when approached with the right mindset, becomes the forge in which resilience and greatness are crafted. Trust is the foundation upon which all meaningful relationships, endeavors, and successes are built. It is the invisible thread that connects individuals, teams, and communities, allowing them to work together, take risks, and pursue shared goals. Without trust, everything falls apart, relationships dissolve, organizations crumble, and societies fragment. Integrity is the cornerstone of trust, and to fail in maintaining integrity is to fail in a way that reverberates far beyond yourself. It is not just a personal failing, but one that undermines the very bonds that hold people together. Failing without integrity is to fail in a way that mirrors the behavior of a psychopath, self-serving, manipulative, and ultimately destructive. At its core, trust is built through consistency, honesty, and reliability. When you say you will do something and you follow through, you reinforce the trust others place in you. When your actions align with your words, you demonstrate integrity. But trust is fragile. It takes years to build and moments to destroy. A single act of dishonesty, a single betrayal can undo a lifetime of trust. Failing with integrity means owning your mistakes, acknowledging the harm caused, and working to make amends. In contrast, failing without integrity through deceit, denial, or manipulation creates a ripple effect of damage that can take years to repair, if it ever can be. One of the most destructive aspects of failing without integrity is the erosion of credibility. Once people lose faith in your word, it becomes nearly impossible to regain their confidence. This loss of credibility doesn't just affect your relationships with others, it also impacts how you see yourself. A person who consistently betrays trust often struggles with self-respect, as they are forced to confront the dissonance between their actions and their values. Over time, this internal conflict can lead to a deep sense of isolation, as trust is not only the foundation of relationships with others, but also the foundation of the relationship you have with yourself. Integrity is not just about honesty, it is about accountability. When you fail with integrity, you do not try to hide your mistakes or shift blame onto others. Instead, you confront them head-on, taking full responsibility for your actions and their consequences. This willingness to be accountable not only helps rebuild trust, but also demonstrates strength of character. People are often more forgiving of mistakes when they see genuine effort to make things right. On the other hand, a lack of accountability, the hallmark of psychopathic failure, creates an environment where trust cannot survive. When people feel they cannot rely on you, they withdraw, leaving you isolated and adrift. Failing without integrity also has a broader societal impact. When individuals or organizations fail in ways that betray trust, it creates a ripple effect of disillusionment and cynicism. People become less willing to take risks, to collaborate, or to believe in the possibility of positive change. This collective erosion of trust can have devastating consequences, as it undermines the very structures that enable progress and cooperation. To fail with integrity is to acknowledge your humanity, to take responsibility for your actions, and to commit to doing better. It is the only way to ensure that failure, rather than being a source of destruction, becomes a stepping stone to growth and stronger relationships. Emotional detachment is often misunderstood as a form of strength, a way to remain calm and composed in the face of adversity, or to shield oneself from the pain and vulnerability that come with connection. While some degree of emotional regulation is important, true emotional detachment, the kind that mirrors the traits of a psychopath, is not strength at all. It is a profound weakness, a failure to engage with the full spectrum of human experience. To live without emotional connection is to deprive yourself of the very relationships and experiences that give life its meaning. When failure stems from emotional detachment, it doesn't simply hurt, it isolates, alienates, and ensures that the individual becomes disconnected from both others and themselves. Emotionally detached individuals often operate under the illusion that their disconnection protects them from harm. They convince themselves that by avoiding vulnerability, they are also avoiding pain. But what they fail to recognize is that this detachment cuts them off not only from pain, but also from joy, intimacy, and personal growth. The absence of emotional connection creates a hollow existence, one where relationships are shallow, achievements feel empty, and failure is not met with reflection or growth, but with apathy and stagnation. This kind of failure, born from emotional detachment, is not the kind that motivates you to try again. It is the kind that leaves you stuck, unable to move forward or connect with the world around you. One of the most damaging aspects of emotional detachment is its impact on relationships. Trust, intimacy, and understanding all rely on emotional connection. When someone is emotionally detached, they are unable or unwilling to recognize and respond to the feelings of others. This creates a sense of alienation and frustration in those around them, as their needs and emotions are dismissed or ignored. Over time, this erodes the foundation of relationships, leaving behind only distance and resentment. People may tolerate detachment for a while, but eventually they pull away, leaving the detached individual increasingly isolated. In a professional or collaborative setting, emotional detachment can be equally destructive. Empathy and emotional intelligence are critical for effective teamwork, leadership, and problem solving. When someone is emotionally detached, they fail to understand or address the concerns of others, often creating an environment of mistrust and miscommunication. This can lead to breakdowns in collaboration, a lack of cohesion, and ultimately failure. Detached individuals may attribute this failure to external factors, refusing to acknowledge the role their lack of connection played in the outcome. Emotional detachment also undermines resilience. While connection and vulnerability can make us feel exposed, they are also what give us strength in the face of adversity. Sharing our struggles with others, seeking support, and leaning on our relationships during tough times are all essential for coping and recovery. When someone is emotionally detached, they cut themselves off from these sources of strength, making it harder to bounce back from failure. Instead of drawing on the support of others or reflecting on their emotions, they retreat into themselves, perpetuating a cycle of isolation and disconnection. This ensures that failure becomes not just an event, but a state of being, a place they remain stuck because they refuse to engage with the emotions that would help them move forward. A lack of long-term vision often results in decisions that prioritize the immediate over the enduring. People without vision may sacrifice long-term stability, growth, or success for the sake of short-term comfort or convenience. This approach might provide temporary relief or satisfaction, but it often comes at a significant cost. For example, spending recklessly instead of saving for the future, neglecting important relationships because of momentary distractions, or avoiding difficult but necessary conversations or decisions are all signs of short-sightedness. These choices accumulate over time, creating a pattern of failure that can feel overwhelming but stems from a fundamental inability to see beyond the present moment. Long-term vision also provides a sense of purpose and direction. Without it, life can feel chaotic and fragmented, as if you are constantly reacting to the world rather than actively shaping your path within it. People who lack vision often find themselves drifting, unsure of what they want or why they are doing what they do. This aimlessness leads to frustration, disappointment, and a sense of futility. Success, in any meaningful sense, requires more than effort. It requires clarity about where you are going and why. A lack of vision is like trying to build a house without a blueprint. It's an exercise in futility, with no coherent structure to guide your work. Furthermore, a failure of long-term vision affects not only the individual but also those around them. When leaders, parents, or partners lack vision, their uncertainty or inconsistency can create confusion and instability for others. In teams or organizations, a lack of vision leads to misaligned goals, wasted efforts, and missed opportunities. People look to those in positions of influence to provide a clear sense of direction, and when that direction is absent, morale and trust erode. This is not just a failure to lead, it is a failure to inspire and cultivate potential in others. Having a long-term vision doesn't mean ignoring the present, rather, it means using the present as a stepping stone toward the future. It's about balancing immediate needs with enduring goals, making choices today that will benefit you tomorrow and beyond. Without this balance, failure becomes almost inevitable. Short-term decisions made without regard for their long-term consequences lead to patterns of regret and missed opportunity. Vision is what ties the immediate to the enduring, the actions of today to the aspirations of tomorrow. Without it, life becomes a series of disconnected moments, lacking coherence, purpose, and direction, ensuring that failure is not just a possibility but a certainty. In conclusion, failure, when approached with a mindset rooted in responsibility, empathy, self-awareness, integrity, and emotional connection, becomes a powerful tool for growth and learning. It is not something to be feared, but something to be understood and embraced. The failures that arise from these virtues are the ones that teach, strengthen, and propel us forward, forging our character and deepening our relationships. On the other hand, when failure is driven by irresponsibility, lack of empathy, emotional detachment, or a lack of long-term vision, it becomes a destructive force repeating itself, isolating us from others, and leaving us stuck in a cycle of stagnation. To fail like a psychopath is to reject the very aspects of humanity that allow us to learn from our mistakes and evolve into better versions of ourselves. It is to become disconnected from others, from our own emotions, and from the long-term goals that give our lives purpose. But to fail with integrity, with self-awareness, and with a clear vision for the future is to transform failure into a powerful tool for personal and collective growth. We must choose how we fail, whether we allow failure to break us down or whether we use it as an opportunity to rebuild, reflect, and push forward. The key is in our response. So let us embrace failure as part of the journey, always striving to fail in ways that ultimately make us stronger, wiser, and more capable of fulfilling our potential.